Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Charlie Chats Footy podcast with me, Charlie Casson. How are you all doing? Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed last week's double episode with Chope and Thomas, and to everyone who gave the podcast a shout out where they were listening to it. So much love for that. Yeah, this is episode 10, double figures now. This week our guest is Sam Clemmett. Sam Clemmett is an actor and a massive Norwich fan. He's best known for his role as Albus Potter in Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, which was in the West End in London, and then he took it to Broadway in New York. He's a huge Norwich fan. He's got some fantastic stories. We speak about his 100% goal scoring record at Carrow Road, the rivalry with Ipswich, promotions and relegations, trips to Wembley, and of course, I asked Sam what football would he play in a film biopic of their life. Please do continue to keep supporting the podcast. It means so much to me, and I appreciate all the retweets and the posts and the reviews and the ratings and all that kind of thing. Thank you to Niall McNamee. Massive thank you to Niall McNamee for becoming the 6th patron of the podcast. Massively appreciate your very, very generous donation. But anyway, I'll shut up now. This is episode 10 with Sam Clemmett. Enjoy. Simple questions to start off. Why Norwich?
Well, one, I'm a big fan of the underdog always, and let's be honest, the amount of times, when I meet people for the first time and we get onto the topic of sport and football, and they go, who do you support? And I say Norwich, and they go, oh, I'm sorry, or someone has to. I'm a big fan of the underdog, and it's always been in my family. I remember when I was young, going over to my grandparents and waking up every morning, and my granddad's there at 8 o'clock watching Match of the Day, and we'd sit down with him and he'd take us through the logistics of the game and how it works, and who Gary Neville is and all that. And also sitting here on a Saturday afternoon with my dad, and Radio Norfolk could be on and he'd be listening to the game. And I was at this point 6, 7, 8 years old when I started to hear about football and understand what it was, but I couldn't sit there for an hour and a half listening to the radio. But it was always sort of there around my being, as it were, as a 6-year-old. And I had sort of not no choice, but I love Norwich and what they're about, and we're the one sort of major football team in East Anglia, and they're who I love.
So are you from Norwich?
Yeah, so I'm from a village just outside of the city centre called Brundall, which is like 20 minutes away. So it's like a 10-minute train ride, and then it's a 5-minute walk up the road, and I'm at Carrow Road. It's great. So
did you play at all as a kid?
I did. I was never that great. I mainly did it because a lot of my close friends played football, and I loved it, but I wasn't the star on the pitch, as it were. And I did my fair share of Sunday league and playing at school for the school football team, and so that was where I sort of started in.
You mentioned about going around to your granddad's and stuff and seeing Match of the Day.
Yeah.
What was your first sort of football memory that's embedded in your mind? So
it was actually when I was playing for my my primary school football team. So I was like 10 or 11 years old, and I would have been in year 6, and we had the opportunity as a team to go and play at Carrow Road, and then watch the match that was on afterwards. And after we played, it was Norwich versus Manchester United. And I was picked as one of the players to go, and it was like a 5-7-a-side game, and they broke the pitch up into 6 mini pitches, and they were tiny goals, and I didn't start. Devastated, but super sub came on, and my best mate, who is still my best mate now, crossed the ball into me. His name's Ollie, and I was back post, and I scored my first and only ever goal for my primary school football team at Carrow Road. And I have never ever forgotten the feeling. So not only do I have I got a goal under my belt for my primary school football team, but I also have 100% goal scoring record at Carrow Road, which very few people have.
Not many people can say that.
No, exactly. I'm in a very privileged position.
So when you're watching the game after, it must have been like mad, like being that age, like still in primary school, watching Norwich against Man United, thinking like watching the game going, I've just scored on this pitch and all these players on the pitch.
Yeah, exactly. It was bizarre because not only was that going through my mind, but we had the opportunity for. I think it was one of the first times I'd been to Carrow Road, and we had the opportunity not only to see Norwich play, but we got to see some of the best and the finest footballers in the world play in front of our very eyes. Wayne Rooney, Cristiano Ronaldo, they were all there, and we all assumed it was going to be a whitewash and we were going to get nothing from the game. But it was a game where we really needed the points to try and salvage our season. And then somehow we clinched a 2-0 win over Man United. And that feeling you get in a huge crowd of people really behind your team in the Barclay end, which is the equivalent of the Kop, is like nothing you will ever experience. It's euphoric. So that entire day put together was without a doubt my first sort of footballing memory, and I was like, yeah, this is going to be part of my life forever, without a doubt.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, if there's something to make you fall in love with it, it doesn't come much better than that day that you just described.
Yeah, absolutely. It was insane. That moment, the ball was crossed and Leon McKenzie got on the end of it and shoved it in the back of the net for 2-0 right in front of us. I mean, we were right behind the goal. We went fucking mad. I mean, you know what it's like when your team scores in an incredibly important game. So,
mate, Leon McKenzie, that's a blast from the past. That
really is. This would have been 2004, 2005, I think.
Darren Huckabee, was he there?
Yeah, Darren Huckabee, Dean Ashton. Yeah, Tim Howard was in goal for Man United. Yeah.
Oh, that's a classic. That's one of them ones that'd be on like football Premier League years on like the telly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's the sort of what they've been doing on Match of the Day recently on a Saturday, because we've not had football, them reliving all the finest moments of the goals and all the controversy on the pitch and naming their top 10.
So from an outside point of view, right, I always find that West Brom and Norwich, I always just find they're always, because obviously you don't, as an outsider, you don't take notice completely of what other clubs are doing, but I feel like West Brom and Norwich in particular, they're always just going up and down, up and down, up and down. You're in the Prem, then you're in the Championship, and it's just like you keep coming up and down. What is that yo-yoing that Norwich experience? Like, I mean, obviously, it looks like you're going down again this year. I mean,
it doesn't look great, does it?
It doesn't look great. Yeah, you're going to need a little bit of a miracle. What do you think that is? Like when you come up to the Prem, what is that? Why is there no stability?
I don't know what it is. I mean, I think we don't spend that much money. I think it's every time we have gone up, I think it's been very apparent where we need to focus on bringing in new players. And Pookie was an amazing signing that we got off a free agent, but we don't tend to spend that much money in the transfer window and try to sort out the problems that we had in the season previous. And I think that's got a lot to do with it. And particularly in the Premier League, I think you need, you've got your A game, but and your A plan, but you need a plan B. Otherwise, you're going to get found out and torn apart. And to be honest, I think that's sort of what's happened this year. Apart from that extraordinary game against Man City at the beginning of the season, we had like a stream of 7 or 8 injuries within our first team. Unfortunately, we never really recovered from that. We didn't have a plan B. And because of that, we just got found out and sort of torn apart week after week. And, that's not to say we play bad football. I think actually this season, we've played some wonderful football. I mean, in the recent game against Liverpool, where they came to Carrow Road and they only beat us 1-0, we were so unfortunate not to get anything from that. But we just didn't have anything at that point in the final third, which is a real shame. So I think that's got a lot to do with it. But, we do, without a doubt, have a curse over our heads. I mean, since 2009, we've been up and down about 4 different times. We went down. We had Glenn Roeder as a manager, and then we went down to League One. God, that's ages ago now.
I remember that. I remember didn't you get beat 7-1 on the first game of the season or something?
7-1 at home against Colchester United. It was a fucking shambles. It was dreadful.
Wasn't the Colchester manager Paul Lambert, and then he left?
It was, and he left and came to us. Yeah. And then it turned the season around, and then we won the League One that year, and then won the Championship the following season. Went back to back and went straight up to the Premier League. It was incredible. It was incredible. And then we stayed up in the Premier League, I think, for about 2 seasons.
Yeah, you had quite a high finish, didn't you? Didn't you finish like 8th or something?
I think it was like 11th or 12th. I mean,
Right.
it was mid-table or maybe just above
Mm.
mid-table. But it was amazing. But Paul Lambert left us for Aston Villa at the beginning of what season was it? Was it 13, 14 or the 12, 13 season? I can't quite remember. But yeah, he left us for Aston Villa, and Chris Hughton came in, and it was great to begin with. And again, we finished relatively mid-table, and then we went down after that, and didn't come back up until 15-16 season.
And that was under Alex Neil. That moves us nicely onto what I was going to touch on next.
Excellent.
Playoff final 2015. I want to just touch a little bit before the final, because I know you went to it. I want to talk about, because the semi you beat Ipswich, right?
Ipswich, yeah.
What was that like?
Mad. I couldn't get tickets for the game. I couldn't worm my way in, unfortunately. But I think the first leg we were at Portman Road, and it was 1-1, and then they came to the Carrow Road, and we beat them 3-1 and took us straight into the playoff final. And not only was it just amazing to get into the playoff final and be in that position, but to beat your rivals and to win the local derby like that, it's the best feeling. I was in the pub watching it, and obviously got smashed after the second leg.
Yeah.
And it was like we'd already gone up to the Premier League, and yet we had another 90 minutes to play. But yeah, it's always satisfying to beat Ipswich, and Ipswich haven't beaten us for the last 10 years. 10 years unbeaten.
Really?
Yeah, man. It's very satisfying. Very, very satisfying.
You've got the East Anglian sort of bragging rights at the minute.
Absolutely.
So that playoff final, what was that like then?
It was, I mean, I'd never been to Wembley, so for me it was the most incredible experience. It was so hard to get a ticket because they were only giving it to season ticket holders. And I think my brother at the time was, and he got himself a ticket, but I had to go sort of through a slightly different avenue and got myself one, and we all travelled down together. And I'd not even been outside the stadium, so just standing on Wembley Way, but also being on Wembley Way, seeing a sea of yellow and green, genuinely emotional, just seeing your team being given this opportunity to go up into the top flight. It's incredible. And as amazing it is to win the championship, there's something very satisfying about going up after the playoff.
Was it stressful?
It's weird you say that, because I was expecting it to be the most stressful 90 minutes of my life, but we were 2-0 up within the first 20 minutes. I think Cameron Jerome scored in the first 10, and then Nathan Redmond scored, I don't know, the 13th, 14th minute or whatever it was. We were 2-0 up, and I sort of turned to my brother and his pal Josh, and what the fuck is going on? Never expected this. And we were a unit for most of the 90 minutes, but particularly the first half. And then we went off and got a beer, and we came back, and the atmosphere had died down a bit. And then Middlesbrough started to come back into the game, and they hit the crossbar, and John Ruddy was really being tested, and there was a penalty shout in the last 10 minutes of the game for Middlesbrough, and became squeaky bum time. And I love Norwich, but we are famous for being a bunch of bottle jobs quite a lot of the time, so I wouldn't have put it past us to fuck it up, but we didn't. It was amazing.
It's so weird talking about you going up via the playoffs in 2015, knowing that since then you've been down and then come back up again in what is it, 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
4 or 5 years ago, we went up and we immediately came straight back down again. That's just classic Norwich. But we didn't spend any money. We didn't develop our squad any further. So I think that's got a lot to do with why we end up going down. We don't sort out our problems, which is frustrating.
Out of the teams that come up from the Championship, there's always one that does okay. Obviously, this year it's Sheffield United, but yeah, I genuinely thought last year, I thought it was going to be Norwich. I had Pookie in my fantasy team from the start. I think
everyone did. I mean, particularly the first 4 or 5 games, he was up there with the top goal scorers, and we're like, yeah, this is our year. And then it just goes downhill. Particularly after beating Man City as well, we're like, yeah, here we go. I would have loved to have been there, or at least been on the ground watching it in a pub. But I was been on holiday with my family for a weekend, and I was flying back from Spain, and we were in the air. And as we were boarding the plane, we scored our first goal. And you have to turn your phone off, and then we're like, what the hell is going on? But we were flying back into Norwich, so the plane was full of Norwich City fans, and so the pilot was keeping up to date with what was going on down on the ground, and announced that we'd beaten Man City 3-2, and it was a plane full of Norwich City fans cheering away, chanting, singing. It was bizarre and terrific all at the same time. I mean, I would have, every part of me wanted to be in a pub drinking beer and then going out celebrating, but alas, I was on a plane.
You know, the year you went up last season to the Prem, were you in America at this point?
Yeah, I was. I wasn't here, unfortunately. So I was having to try and stream the game because, I mean, it's so hard to get hold of a lot of the football out there.
Yeah. What's it like? Is there like any English pubs in New York that have got like football on, or?
Yeah, there's a few. I specifically remember that there was because a few of my classmates were Man United fans, and we went to watch the United PSG game. I walked into this bar, this Irish bar on the Lower East Side, and I walked in and heard Gary Lineker's voice and nearly burst into tears. I hadn't heard it in about 10 months. So yeah, it's hard to get hold of, but there are a handful of decent English pubs, and you can go in and get a horrible pint of Carling and feel like I'm walking into Carrow Road. And yeah, I watched a handful of the games that season that eventually got us up.
At least there's a time difference where you're not, because when I've done plays and stuff, I've like legged it up to the dressing room after the bows to check the score, because like the matinees are always the same time as the kickoff.
Yeah.
So at least you had the time difference where you sort of knew what was going on.
Oh, absolutely. That's a very good point. Actually, I did get the chance to watch them, but in the afternoon you got a show in the evening, and unless it was on like my day off on a Monday and a Tuesday, and occasionally, it's a Monday night game, but I couldn't have a beer with it. I can't go on stage pissed. That'd be shocking. But it's funny you should say about being, doing a play and then running off to see what the score is in the dressing room afterwards. It was the World Cup, obviously back in 2018. Being in Russia, a lot of the time we were doing the show, and me and Anto would be watching the lead up to the game. We got the first 15 minutes of it before we started the play, and any given opportunity, because we were running around like headless chickens anyway, we'd be running down to check what the score was. And there was a day, I think it was the Croatia game, where we eventually got knocked out, where England got knocked out. I'm sure you remember, it was a nail bite. It was horrendous.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Horrendous. And we were in the lead, and we were trying to leave it as long as we could before we had to go up for beginners. And that day there had been a problem front of house, and so they couldn't get the show going again. So we could watch another 15, 20 minutes of the game, and it was looking so good for us. And I went, I think we'll be fine. We got this. Went up, did the second act, came down. How has this happened in the space of an hour?
That sounds a bit dubious to me. Who was in charge of front of house? It sounds like they're a football fan.
I wish they cared about soccer. I really do, but they didn't. It was pure luck.
That semi-final, when Trippier scored that, I think that is the happiest I've ever been, ever.
I think you speak for the entire nation, to be honest, mate.
It's just, I still can't. I mentioned this on another episode I did a couple of weeks ago. I can't even begin to imagine what it would have been like if we got to the final. Like, where do you watch that? Where do you watch a World Cup final? Like, it's just, do you go to a pub? Do you go to
where do you go to watch your team playing the World Cup final?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Where do you go?
Do you go to your favourite pub, or do you go to a crowded Wetherspoons in the centre of your local town, so you go out afterwards? I mean,
I feel like wherever you go, it has to be with your close family and friends,
but also somewhere there's going to be like a party and a carnival over the streets afterwards. Do you know what I mean?
What could have been, man? We could have actually experienced this.
That's literally the definition of heartbreak. What happened? I mean, It was.
I still watch this. I know it gets posted on Twitter quite a lot that if Kane had squared it, if he had though, I mean, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Absolutely not.
We mentioned Ipswich a bit before.
Yes.
I want to ask about the rivalry. I've been asking all my guests about their rivals of their team, because unless you're fully associated with a club and you support them and you follow them, you know who everyone's rivals are, but you don't know why. So it's a weird one with Ipswich and Norwich, because geographically, I mean, I think you're about 45, 50 miles apart, aren't you?
Yeah,
In terms of like local derbies, it's not actually that local if you think in terms of like Tottenham and Arsenal and
absolutely.
Man United and Manchester City, Liverpool and Everton. You're Norfolk. Are you Norfolk?
Yes, Norfolk, and then Ipswich down in Suffolk.
Yeah. So like Norwich is the only team in Norfolk and Ipswich is the only team or big team in Suffolk. It's like each club represents these two counties. And like, whereas with United and City in Manchester, you'd be mixing with different fans and stuff. And like the same with Tottenham and Arsenal in North London, you'd mix with, you might go to work with an Arsenal fan, but it feels like in Norwich and Ipswich, because they are quite far apart in terms of local derbies, you ever really mix with like the opposition fan in the area?
No, not really. Very, very rarely, unless it's Derby Day and you're down at Portman Road and Ipswich fans are up at Carrow Road. Very rarely would you see the teams mixed. And I think you hit the nail on the head. In Norfolk, we're the team that represents this county, and in Suffolk, Ipswich is the same, and that's it. We're the only two that play in the top flight, and I think we have so much to protect. Do you know what I mean? And because we don't mingle and mix with each other, and the times that we do come together, it's so fierce. I mean, I was having a look earlier on at past derbies between us, and that we haven't lost against them in 10 years, and I do genuinely think it's because we have so much to protect as a team and a county. I mean, it's fierce. It's apparently one of the second biggest rivalries or derby days in the UK, supposedly. Supposedly, whether that's true, I don't know. I mean, I think it's certainly to be like that. It used to be incredibly fierce, but maybe less so now.
Yeah, I read an interview actually from a referee, and he'd said that it's the most fierce derby he's ever managed. He's ever refereed, and he said when you're in the when he was in the tunnel, it was like the players were coming out for a boxing fight, and they were ready. They were ready to sort of fight.
It means so much to our fans as well, and also I think because we're so up and down as a club, and Ipswich are now down in League One. I think the times that we do come together and clash, there's often a lot of space in between. It's not every season. You get, the Arsenal, the Tottenham, that will come together every single season. So the opportunity that we get to play our local rivals, I think we take it with both hands and run with it and make it as if it's going to be the decider of our season. Do you know what I mean? It's and they also apparently, and I didn't know this either, but they call it the Old Farm Derby because it's, all farming and agriculture around it, which is a play on the Old Firm Derby.
Oh, I love that. I love that. The Old Farm.
The Old Farm Derby.
I did not know that. That's a new one.
A bunch of you sit on the train going up into the city, and just got a load of old boys. Oh, you're right. Going up the city, watch Car Road. You go watch Norwich at Car Radio. Oh, right. Let's go then. It's just ridiculous, but it's just a sea of that. It's just a sea of that in there.
It's interesting because you are, like you said, they're League One now, aren't they? And I mean,
they are. Yeah.
I'm not sure what the League One table is looking like, but if they go up, if it carries on League One, I mean, you'll be back in the. Yeah, I don't want to presume you're going. I keep presuming that you're getting relegated. I think you're 8 points off safety at the minute.
Yeah, we'd be doing well to stay up. I mean, I think we're 21 points, and I can't remember who's above us, but they're on 25, and they've got a game in hand. So.
Is it Villa?
Unfortunately, it's. I think it is Villa actually, but it's not looking great.
Do you reckon if you go down, do you reckon? Well, would you like to keep Farke?
Absolutely, yeah, Daniel Farke. Absolutely, I think he's been amazing for the club. He's been bringing in quite a lot of the youth, which is great to see, and I think has been a problem of ours in the past, not feeding in the youth quite as much. And he's brought in some incredibly talented players. He's got us playing some terrific football. I think we've just been very, very unlucky this season. When I'm watching Norwich play, the FA Cup game against Tottenham, which went to penalties just before this coronavirus hit, we played brilliant football. We fully deserved to win that game, and we deserve to be in the Premier League. But it's just not gone our way. And like I've already said, the 8 injuries that we suffered at the beginning of the season, and unfortunately not having a plan B in our back pocket, we just got found out very, very quickly. which is a real shame. And in the past, particularly with the likes of Houghton, I think Chris Houghton really had his day, and everything felt very, very defensive. And we always felt like if we were up 1-0 in the first half or got a goal in the second half, it's like, let's just sit back. Let's not try and fuck this up. Let's try and ride this out for the 1-0 win. There was no aggression. There was no drive behind the club. I totally feel there's a drive from him and with the players as well, and they seem to work brilliantly together, and winning the championship last year as well. Just seeing how enthused these young players were, or the entire squad were for this club, and was so great to see. And I thought that was going to really play into our hands this year. Unfortunately, it hasn't. But I don't think getting rid of him is the solution. I think go back, get back in the championship, and I love the championship anyway. It's always a bit of a bun fight. Play our football, do our thing, and if we can get straight back up there, I think we've got a good chance of holding our ground, because I do think we deserve to be a Premier League club.
If you do go down, this is just speaking from an outside point of view, you're probably going to struggle to keep Pookie.
Yeah,
probably struggle to keep Cantwell as well, and a few of the others.
I think Ben Godfrey as well will struggle to keep him. I mean, we've got some serious young talent in our team. And,
Aaron's is right back, isn't he?
Max Aarons as well. Yep. All of these guys, I think, could very easily could move on.
That's what I mean. It could either you go down, keep everyone and the gaffer, and then you probably be favourites to win the league, or they all leave, the manager leaves, and it's like you could struggle in the championship.
We'll see you in League One.
Yeah, you could do it. Ipswich. You might be playing Ipswich in League One.
Well, there is that. I mean, that'll be a nice thing to look forward to every season. 2 games against Ipswich. Yeah, who knows? I don't think getting rid of him is the right solution. I think we've been very, very unfortunate this year, but we'll see how it plays out.
So, any footballer that's ever lived, past or present, you can play them in a Hollywood biopic of their life on the big screens. Hit blockbuster movie. Who are you going to play and why?
I have been thinking about this, and I think from his days as a player to then becoming a manager, Alex Ferguson.
Interesting.
And his career. I mean, before while he was playing amateur at 16, and his career in Scotland, and then moving into being one of the greatest managers of all time the world has ever seen. There's very few that you put within that bracket, and he's absolutely one of them. And as well, because I've got a slight affinity to Man United, and I think there's always been a fair bit of controversy surrounding his time there as well. I mean, I really remember the headline of him supposedly throwing a boot at David Beckham, and it's what goes on behind closed doors at a time when a club is in desperate need of a win, and how someone like that can turn things around, and how he became so prolific, and what he did that made him amazing, and the glory days of working with the likes of Val Nistelrooy, Tevez, Ronaldo, and then when all of them went on, and he started bringing in a lot of the youth as well. And he's always been a big advocate of bringing in a lot of the youth that train from the academy, and not just trying to pull people in left, right and centre from around the world. I think the guy's incredible, and I'd love to sit down with him for, over the course of 4 weeks, do a detailed interview and ask him all the questions I want to ask him, and then give it a go at playing him. Yeah.
I was going to say that scene as well. That I'm picturing, now you say Fergie, I'm picturing all in that film, all the scenes, the good scenes, and that Beckham. I mean, if you could dramatise it a little bit, but that Beckham football boot would be a cracker, wouldn't it?
It's the Oscar-winning moment, isn't it? The boot leaves leaves his hand. There's tears. There's blood.
Camera pans to you, like staring over the shoulder shot with Beckham in the corner, like.
I just need to know my Scottish accent. That's the only thing.
And red up your nose a bit. Get a bit of energy. It's interesting you say that, because when I've asked that question, even to myself, you instantly just think of footballers who haven't necessarily gone on to manage, I don't see Fergie as a player. You just see him as a managerial genius.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he's been there and done that. And there's that moment as well where I think I can see this film already now. There's the moment where I think there was a very famous goal think Mark Robbins scored it. It was in the cup, and they say that it's the goal that saved Alex Ferguson's job. Apparently, there was a lot of talk before the game that if Man United didn't win this game in the cup, he was getting sacked. And Mark Robbins scored this goal, and after that, they went on to win the FA Cup that year, and that was the start of his trophies.
Wow!
But apparently, he was going to get the boot. Yeah, which could be in the
Didn't
movie.
know that. Without a doubt, that's where the movie's going to start.
yeah. It's like the interview before, say, like the start of it. It's like the interview before. You could say, "Oh my God, I'm going into it. We need to get this film made." I'm getting way too deep into this.
The man's won 38 trophies, and to think he nearly got sacked and wouldn't have had that opportunity to like change English football and the mentality of English football. You know, that's.
I mean, that treble team would never have happened. None of that would have ever happened if that Mark Robbins didn't score that goal. Apparently,
absolutely.
Yeah,
and I've still never been to Old Trafford, and that would absolutely get me into Old Trafford, and I could be in there when it's just silent. I want to walk on that pitch when no one else is in the stadium and just look around. And that shot of me walking out as he's retiring and just looking around. It's the end of the movie.
Any producers, cast directors, anyone listening who fancies doing a little Alex Ferguson movie, Sam's your man.
I'll send this off to casting directors and just listen to this snippet. I think in 10, 20 years time, just get in touch and we'll get cracking.
I've not actually thought about who I'd be. I genuinely haven't thought about this. I don't know.
Someone else that's always fascinated me, and it just because there's so much controversy with him off of the pitch, and on the pitch actually. He's just a man that just loses his head constantly. It's Joey Barton. I mean, I don't think I'd go there. I think Alex Ferguson's the one I'll stick with for that question.
Yeah.
But
Joey Barton,
he is a character and a half.
You know that day that they won the league, City, and the famous Aguero.
Yeah.
It's on YouTube, right? And he gets sent off that game. And I don't know if you remember it, but have a look on YouTube if you haven't seen it after. He gets sent off for I think elbowing Tevez or something. And he gets the red card, and as he gets the red card, the camera like zooms in on him, and he kicks Aguero, and you can see like clenches his teeth. He like kicks Aguero on the floor. Company comes over to try and break it up, and he goes to headbutt Company. This is like all live on telly as he's got sent off. It's in the mental clip.
I need to look for that. I can't remember that at all.
Watch it after this. It's mental. And I think his brother's in prison as well. I think they're just a bit of a nutty family.
I think they are a little bit of a nutty family. I mean, but there's plenty to put into that movie as well. Let's be honest. It loses his head at the click of your fingers. It's insane. But yeah, have you thought of anyone that you think?
I don't know. I think it would have to be someone. From hearing other people's answers, it's definitely got to be someone who's had some sort of a journey and been in the media for some reason or another. I'd quite like to do Roy Keane.
Oh yeah.
Just because he's a bit of a nutter and he's had a bit of a past.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, when he walked out of the World Cup in 2002, that's where it'd begin. Because he had the fight, he had the Barney with Mick McCarthy, didn't he?
Yeah. I'm
sure you don't like Mick McCarthy, do you?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I thought so. I don't think any Norwich fan would.
Absolutely not. No, I just suddenly remembered one more memory. Do you remember our owner Delia Smith going on the pitch at half time?
Yes.
Let's be having you. Yeah. And she to this day says that she wasn't drunk. But if you listen to her, I mean, she's not got a complete grasp of it.
She says she wasn't drunk.
She says she wasn't drunk. She says that she wasn't. She said, I haven't had a drink.
Oh my God, that's bullshit. She's steaming.
Absolutely steaming. To the greatest fans of the world, let's be having you.
Was that at half time or the end?
No, it was at half time. It was rallying the fans to get behind Norwich because it was really, I mean, I now cannot remember the game, but...
It was Man City. I remember it was Manchester City.
It was Manchester City.
Yeah. It was Man City, and you lost in the last minute.
Yeah, but I mean, we turned things around. We started to turn things around in the second half, so maybe her rallying cry really helped. But yeah, walking on the pitch with their heels on, sort of stumbling on after a night out in Norwich. Oh man! But yeah, I remember that, and that's another thing as well. When I say I'm a Norwich fan, everyone immediately brings that up, and unfortunately, that's one of the things that puts Norwich on the map.
Yeah, to be fair, it's the go-to thing when you think of that. You just
It's the go-to thing, absolutely.
Sam, mate, thank you very much for coming on, man. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. Did you enjoy that?
I did, yeah. Thank you very much. It's just been great. Thanks, mate.
Today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you know exactly how much you're going to get when you include an ad from Podgo. I recently joined as a member, and you can too. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co. podgo.co.